all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
First on film and entertainment, I am joined by Gregory King and Peter Krause. My name is Alex First, and Greg has just come back from a few days in Sydney. You do that each year, don't you, mate?
I do, yeah. This time I had a reason for going up there, not only the football, but to see some films at the Sydney Film Festival and to catch up with Tina Turner, the musical, which was fantastic.
Well, we will talk about that definitely during the course of the program. Vivid was there as well while you were up there. That's something I really enjoy seeing. I haven't seen it. I think I saw it once when I was up there at the right time. And I got to say that I miss White Night in Melbourne. Did you ever participate, one of the 500,000 people, or at least 250,000 that descended on the city? Because we don't have that. Instead, we've got the Rising Festival at the moment.
I did the White Night once, and I hated the crowds.
Yeah, I must admit that I lost my wife, and it's kind of a scary proposition because it was a human crush. Nevertheless, I would love to. I like things being lit up. I don't know what it is, but these days with drones and all sorts of other things, because I saw the finale on television, the Sydney finale, I really like that. I just think with all sorts, with AI and its development, with drones, with technology, it's going to catapult the artistic endeavour of human beings even further, as long as it's used for good and not bad, Greg.
Fair enough. Are you going to keep droning on about this?
I am clapping on about it. Peter Krause, you like dark places. I mean, are you into illuminated signage and illuminations generally or not?
I'm not a great neon fan, but why not?
Maybe we should get you on a bike in Lycra, sort of illuminated Lycra. Wouldn't that be an ugly? No. I misspoke then, Peter. I misspoke.
The horror.
The horror, exactly. Now, stop bringing Jewish dance into this. Now, thank you. Greg, in terms of, you mentioned Sydney Film Festival, you went to opening night, did you?
I saw the opening night film, yes.
And just briefly, worthwhile or not, and what was it?
The New Boys, the new film from Warwick Thornton. I don't think it's his best film, but basically it's set during World War II, where these kids are being looked after as some sort of religious nunnery under the tutelage or care of Kate Blanchett, and then this wild Aboriginal boy is brought there, and sort of his story, how he fits in or doesn't with the other kids there, and it brings in all sorts of religious themes about Indigenous issues and that kind of thing. It's not his best film.
Is it easily relatable, or is it sort of more of an esoteric work?
A bit more esoteric, especially the way it's shot, done in sort of warm brownish hues, which match the sparse landscape. Anyway, it got a good reception.
Oh, yeah, well, which I would have anticipated. Is the Sydney Festival is not as large in terms of numbers of films as the Melbourne, is it? Or
it does have a lot of films there. It just doesn't go as long. Melbourne's
right.
For about 17 days. The Sydney one goes for about 10 days, plus a couple of days of repeat or what they call encore screenings of films that prove to be popular. But it's more spread out than Melbourne too, whereas most of Melbourne's screenings take place mainly in the CBD, Sydney, all the way to Leichhardt, Parramatta, Newtown, all those kind of things.
Oh, that's good. That's great, because, I mean, you don't have to sort of trudge into the city to see parts of the festival. I like that. Good idea.
Who wants to travel out to Leichhardt or Parramatta at night time, coming home 11 o'clock at night?
That's true, but are you saying that the films are only shown there? I mean, certainly
there's a lot in the CBD as well.
No, but what I'm saying is that if there's...
That's where I tended to stick my choices to, so I didn't have to travel far.
No, but what I was asking is, if you see a film that you like that happens to be in Leichhardt, but you don't want to travel to Leichhardt, is it also in the city, or is it?
Yeah, there are multiple screenings of them.
Yeah.
I was only up there for 4 days, so I crammed in 3 films over the 4 days and a couple of other things as well.
Mm-hmm. Fair and reasonable. Now, let's start with a film that is, well, I thought could have been better, but nevertheless, I thought it was good. I still thought it was worthwhile. And I'm talking about One Fine Morning, which is 113 minutes. It's MA rated. It's this slice of life piece, and it combines the sensitive touch of the writer-director Mia Hansen-Løve, who was responsible for Bergman Island, with a leading actor, Lea Seydoux. I actually thought she's such a fine actor. Love it. She plays Sandra Kienzler, who's a single mum whose husband died 5 years ago. And she's a translator. She and her family are dealing with the deteriorating health of her father. His name is George, played by Pascal Gregory. He is an esteemed professor of philosophy. Unfortunately, he has a neurodegenerative disease which has greatly affected his hold on reality. He's all but lost his eyesight as well. He's no longer capable of looking after himself. So the family, including his ex-wife, Francois, played by Nicole Garcia, needs to find an appropriate facility to care for him. And that's sort of heartbreaking. It really is in real life, let alone on film. So he ends up being shuffled from one hospital to the next, with Sandra being a frequent visitor. The rest of Sandra's life is centered around her 8-year-old daughter, Lynn, played by Camille Leben-Martins. And then she bumps into an old friend of her dead husband, who happens to be an expedition adventurer called Clement, played by Melville Poupard. Married with a son, the chemistry between Clement and Sandra is obvious. His marriage is on shaky ground. The inevitable happens, but navigating that inevitable is hardly without its issues. So mixing poignancy with pleasure, I actually think this does present the audience with a rich tableau. The script allows the actors to showcase their talents, which is the whole point of a good script. None more so than Lea Seydoux, who really brings a great sense of authenticity, I felt, to her portrayal. And it allows Sandra, finding Pascal, in the context of what we're seeing, allows Sandra to rediscover a part of her being that was really boxed away. And I thought that Seydoux's playfulness is every bit as engaging as her more serious side, because we do see both sides of her character. And Poupard presents his character's moral dilemma with assurance. In the clinches, quite literally, there's a smouldering intensity about the couple, which is good. I mean, we that's what we want to see. Gregory excels as a man whose intellect has all but abandoned him. And I also appreciated the feisty characterization by Nicole Garcia as George's former wife, come activist, Francois. I thought she was really strong. And by the way, the film's title, One Fine Morning, is drawn from the professor's intended autobiography, which he never got to write. It deals with life's big issues with quite some maturity, and I found it a film of substance and quality that has emotional resonance. What about you, Peter? Do you like One Fine Morning?
I certainly did. Mia Hansen-Løve is such an incredible filmmaker. Her films, as you mentioned, Bergman Island and Father of My Children and other films, she explores in particular women's journey through difficult circumstances and trying to reach some sort of conclusion which is going to be beneficial for everyone concerned. And One Fine Morning is another great example. Lea Seydoux is such a good actress and inhabits the role so well. In fact, there are times when you see her emotionally affected by what's happening with her father, as well as the relationship that she can never properly have with her lover who's married. So this is a really fine film, a great journey in many respects, subtle in some respects as well, and another great example of French filmmaking that is so prominent in terms of exploring, in particular, women's role in society.
It's certainly the sensibilities of French cinema are different, and that's something that I always look forward to, because it's not the take that you would necessarily have from an English, an American, or an Australian film for that matter. And vive la différence. So it's no pun intended. I really enjoy French cinema because it explores themes in a different tone than we would get in the the other Western nations I've already alluded to. What about you, Greg? Did you?
I haven't seen this one yet.
You haven't seen it yet. Okay, fair and reasonable.
You other things, obviously.
Exactly. So, okay, Peter, your score out of 10 for One Fine Morning, MA rated 113 minutes.
Oh, an excellent film, 8 out of 10.
Well, I give it 7.5. I mean, I liked it. I really liked it, but I didn't love it, but I really liked it. So that's what I would sort of say about One Fine Morning. Let's go from there to we go from subtlety to non-subtlety, I would suggest, by talking about another superhero movie called The Flash. Now, this is a very long film, as seems to be the bent whenever you've got a superhero movie of late. We're 144 minutes here, so shy on two and a half hours. It's M-rated, and you can't actually make a superhero movie without reference to the multiverse in this day and age, can you, Greg? The multiverse is everywhere.
Well, especially in the Marvel films, they've been doing it for years now.
Yeah, but that's the thing that amazes me now, that one's copying the other. I'm not sure who's copying whom, but we're talking about DC here. So DC sort of latched onto it, and I mean, is that a good thing? I mean, can't we stick to one earthly plane? Can we not do that anymore? Do we have to go down?
There is a piece of possibilities, though, which I think this film has used quite well, cleverly.
Yeah, that's true. Look, you've got the nerdish, insecure Barry Allen, played by Ezra Miller, works in criminal forensics, and he's got a voracious hunger. Whenever he can stuff his face, he stuffs his face. That's to give him energy, right? So anyway, he's the pivotal figure, Barry Allen. And he is also the Flash. He's a founding member of the Justice League. But he's forever down on himself. And even though he's rescued many people in distress, he regards himself as being treated badly, shabbily, called upon only when his hero, Batman, is not available. And just to give you some sort of context, the Flash gained his superpower, which was incredible speed, after being doused in chemicals following a lightning strike. So that's how he came to be the Flash. Barry Allen's upbringing has been shaped by a tragic event that saw his beloved mother, Nora, played by Maribel Verdú, stabbed to death. His father, Nora's husband, Henry, Ron Livingston, is incarcerated for that crime. Henry has always protested his innocence, and Barry Allen, believes him. The outcome of Henry's appeal is imminent, although his expectations of success are low. Then Barry, in the guise of the Flash, chances upon a way to rewrite history, to turn back the clock and ensure his mother never died. Although he is warned that going back in time, making over a single event, can upset the equilibrium of the universe, the Flash can't help himself. And it's there that he comes face to face with himself. Suddenly there's an older and a younger Flash, and the pair must learn to work together. But, as had been forecast, time travel can have devastating consequences. As a result of the older Flash's action, Earth is under extreme threat from dreaded supervillain General Zod, played by Michael Shannon. So the Flashes, the two of them, are not alone in fighting the enemy. In their corner is Batman, played by Michael Keaton, and Supergirl, Sash Carley. With lots and lots of cameos, there's a great deal crammed into 144 minutes of intense action, and you've really got to concentrate to follow all the threads. The first Batman we meet is Ben Affleck, and Gal Gadot appears briefly as Wonder Woman. There's also a reverential nod, and I'm deliberately avoiding naming them, to superheroes past. So The Flash is the work of the writers Christina Hodson, who did Birds of Prey, and Joby Harold, Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Direction is from Andy Muschietti, who you'll remember met runaway success with It, the horror movie. Look, frankly, I appreciated Barry Allen's fraught backstory and his endeavour to bring back his mum more than the superheroes at war in this film. I thought that was good. The goofy characterisation by Ezra Miller, his awkwardness around virtually everybody, is quite endearing. And I also like the arc given to both Affleck and Keaton as iterations of Batman. Affleck, I first played the Cape Crusader in 2016, but with Keaton, we have to go back to 1989. I love their nostalgic returns in The Flash. There are quite a few memorable scenes, especially early on. Among them, Affleck as Batman on a souped-up motorbike with more gadgets than James Bond, in hot pursuit of a getaway car featuring gun-toting thieves. And contrast that with a Flash running out of petrol as a building collapses and a baby shower beckons. That was one of the great and humorous moments in the movie. And also dips my lid at the amusing reference to the Back to the Future films, which appears as the plot unfolds. Now, notwithstanding my basic enjoyment of the picture, I can't say I'm a massive fan of the ongoing trend in terms of superhero films, whether that be Dark Marvel or DC. And I speak of introducing ever more characters into plot lines. I know the genie's well and truly out of the bottle, but I, for one, would like to see that reined in. It's just too much. Still, I thought for the most part, The Flash remains entertaining and engaging, if overextended. It did not need to run for 2 hours and 24 minutes. Gregory King, did it?
Probably not, but more is better in the superhero universe there. I thought this was not quite Flash, but it was entertaining enough there, with a lot of humour in there. I thought as the younger, the teenage Barry character, Miller was channeling Keanu Reeves from his Bill and Ted days there.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought there was some of the special effects were really quite spectacular and really good, but some also appeared rather dodgy. So maybe they were running out of money by the end of the film or something. And I thought Michael Shannon appeared bored with his role here as General Zod, just going through the motions there. But I liked some of the humour there, especially when Barry was trying to adjust to this new world he'd gone to, when Eric Stoltz starred in Back to the Future, not Michael J. Fox, and Kevin Bacon was in Top Gun, not Tom Cruise in that. I thought that was playing around with some of the film history lore there. I also like the clever cameos, many uncredited here, that pay homage to earlier versions of many of these superheroes that we've grown up with. And Michael Keaton is the oldest actor to play Batman on screen.
I thought he did a great job, really.
Yeah, I thought he brought a sense of gravity to the performance, but also this sense of familiarity, because those who grew up with the Tim Burton 2 films there will remember him there. But I look, there's a bit all over the shop at times there. Some great action sequences, lots of colour and movement there, and dealing with some big themes there like destiny, fate, family. And Barry Allen learns that no matter what you do, you can't change history.
Yeah, I mean, look, and we've seen this theme before, but I thought it was really well played here, that you change one thing, it changes everything, and you can't always get what you wish for, which is a reasonable theme. Peter, did you appreciate it or not? I mean, you're not really a superhero massive fan, are you?
No, not so much. I must admit, I did find this film somewhat tiresome, especially as Ezra Miller's Flash character and his alter ego younger self, that playing off each other became very tiresome indeed. I thought this is just going on too far. Yes, there is some humour in the film, and there is some clever CGI. I know that they filmed this over a number of years because it was affected by COVID, and there were budget issues, and lots of filmmakers changed course during the making of the film and so on. So it has its production issues. It was nice to see Jeremy Irons in the film. It was nice to see Tamura Morrison in the film as well. But throwing all these cameos and small roles and so on into the film makes it for a somewhat complex and repetitive mix for my liking. I mean, the whole Justice League sort of aspect of it is okay to some extent, but I just didn't feel any warmth or any relationship at all with the characters or with the situation. Yes, the CGI was quite good, and some of the cameos, which we won't mention, but amusing at times, were well worth seeing. But I just felt that the whole thing dragged a little bit, and it was just too repetitive for my liking. So I'm not a huge fan of it.
Well, again, I mean, so did you see merit in what they were trying to achieve by bringing back the past and combining it with the present? Because I did see merit in that, and Greg said the same thing.
Yeah, look, to some extent, yes. But again, I've seen that in other films, that idea of changing history, of bringing back the past, and I've seen it presented in a more compelling way than it was in The Flash, which became rather childish at times. I thought, this is getting really silly, and I would have thought there are stronger themes that the film could have explored.
Yeah, fair and reasonable. Okay, so let's go to the scores. Greg, why don't you start us off with The Flash, which runs for 2 hours and 24 minutes. What are you going to give it out of 10?
I'll give it 6 out of 10. I'm 6 to 6.5 if pushed there. I might have given it more if it had been shorter and cut some of the nonsense out.
Yeah, well, that's which is what I started with. And well, okay, I thought you were going to give it a higher score given the praise that you.
I like Peter. I got a bit bored with it, and I found it a little bit repetitive. And by the end,
okay. And Peter,
look, it's okay as a time filler, I suppose, for superhero fans, but I could only give it 5 out of 10.
Well, then I've got the high watermark here. I'm giving it 7.5. I thought it was quite meritorious, notwithstanding that, like you, Greg, I started to shuffle in my seat a little bit. But, I think that's true of virtually every superhero movie that we're seeing of late. They seem to definitely stretch it out beyond the 2 hour mark. And that's almost like they wear it as a badge of honor. All right, well, you are on J-Air, and by the way, we want you to support the station. $54 gets you membership. So just go to j-air.com.au and you can support us with your hard-earned. But just keep listening 24/7. We have got programming, hopefully, to stimulate, engage, and entertain you on 88 FM. Now, I want to talk about another big film, and I suppose it's interesting that we're coming up to school holidays here. And this, to me, is one that you can take your littlies to or your grandkids to. It's called Elemental. It's PG rated and it runs for 109 minutes. And you've got to ask the question, what happens when water encounters fire? Well, water usually douses fire. If it's not too big, if it's a bushfire, that you might need a lot of it over a lengthy period of time. But it's the question behind Pixar's latest animated adventure comedy. This glowing couple, Bernie, the voice of Aroni Del Carmen, and Cinder, Sheila Omi, arrive in Element City and are duly processed. So imagine somebody coming to the United States in days gone by and you've got the Statue of Liberty, etc., history of America. Anyway, circumstances have resulted in Bernie and Cinder. By the way, that's not their sort of real names, but their names, The official can't understand what the names are, so names them Bernie and Cinder. And I suppose that's true to life, because often when people in the past emigrated to whichever country and their names were not readily rolling off the tongue to an English-speaking audience, they were given another name. So I suppose there's some truth in all of that. But anyway, circumstances have resulted in Bernie and Cinder leaving behind their beloved home, which was known as Fireland. Element City, well, it's a place where each of the elements tend to mix with their own. So that avoids the fallout that fraternising with others can bring. So Bernie and Cinder, they take up residence in a dilapidated building before opening a good food establishment named The Fireplace. Soon enough, the happy couple welcomes a daughter known as Ember Lumen, voice of Leia Lewis. And in seemingly no time, she's introduced into the family business by her father, who hopes that before too long, she'll take over the business from him. There is a problem, though. While having a deep love of family, Ember, who is now in her 20s, is hot-headed, and she loses her cool with difficult customers. That is a problem for her father, who basically says, well, when you're ready, you will take over, but clearly you are not ready yet. And then one day, while left to look after the shop, Ember's temper triggers a flood. And swept into their premises is a city inspector, quite literally. This city inspector is a water element called Wade Ripple, played by, or voiced by, Mamadou Athie, who issues the fireplace with a number of citations. And these may well see the place closed permanently, a situation that Ember cannot countenance. So in her endeavour to right the wrong, in inverted commas, Ember begins seeing more of Wade Ripple. And against her better judgment, a meaningful, close relationship between the two does develop, although he does appear more eager than her. Mind you, when her father finds out, there will be hell to pay. More than that, the question must be asked, is the shop Ember's true calling? Now, I asked this question, why is it that animation like live action can cut to the quick and be so heartfelt and heart-wrenching? I was pondering that while I was watching Elemental unfold. And my simple answer, because the properties imbued in the rich tapestry of characters created by the master storytellers is just that. It's very, very rich. And in effect, cartoons become human. They laugh, they cry, they feel sad, they get angry. And so it is here in Elemental. And I freely acknowledge I actually shed a few happy tears while viewing this latest Pixar release. And I think that's a great thing. Dare I say, there's more than a little fire in the hero. There's perseverance, there's patience, there's understanding in her bow. And while the pair are like chalk and cheese, the outcome is never in doubt. The film is about overcoming impediments. So it was written by John Hoberg, Kat Leckel, and Brenda Hugh, who, along with the director Peter Son, were responsible for development of the story. Love the creativity involved in crafting characters that represent polar opposites, in this case fire and water, with clouds thrown in for good measure. And it begs for a kaleidoscope of colour, and it duly delivers big time. The picture is really glorious to look at. The animators have done a fabulous job bringing Elemental City to life. More than that, I thought the film has charm, it's got pizzazz, it's got spirit. Good one, as I mentioned at the outset, for parents to take their little ones too. It's called Elemental, it's PG rated, runs for 109 minutes. Greg, what did you think of it?
I haven't seen this one yet either, Alex. I had a problem when I came back from Sydney. I had a leak pipe in my apartment while I was away that's ruined the carpet. So I've been trying to get hold of plumbers and trying to dry up the carpet. So apart from work, I haven't had much time to do anything else.
I can well understand. I'm sorry to hear that. In fact, you've basically played into the theme of this movie, flood.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
How would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the Bartesian Home Cocktail Maker. Bartesian is a sleek machine the size of a coffee maker that makes premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails, from classics to the most exotic premium cocktails served in the best bars today. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Cocktail Maker. And now get Bartesian's best Black Friday deal ever at bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of individual mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. The Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. Now get Bartesian's best Black Friday deal ever. It's available right now, only at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail for Bartesian's best deal ever. Only at bartesian.com/cocktail.
Yes, yeah. See, inadvertently, you've been flooded. In terms of your flood of emotions, Peter Krause, what did you think?
I was a bit disappointed by Elemental, I have to say. Yes, I like Pixar's films. I remember all the way back to Inside Out, which was such a clever and well-written animation about emotions and behavior and how to control that and so on. And I thought there was real quality in writing in that film. But I think now that Disney is part of the Pixar universe, I have a feeling, and pardon the pun, that Disney has watered down a little bit of the stories that we're now seeing coming from Pixar. And Elemental is a good example of that. The whole issue of fire and water and how they are opposites and how they attract and so on became somewhat repetitive for me. There's that repetition sort of aspect a bit like The Flash. And I must admit, for me, it was a little tiresome because I would have liked more of the story about the migration aspect, about fitting into community, about other aspects of land and water and so on working together. I don't know. I found this a little bit too simplistic and a little bit too repetitive. Look, the CGI is very good in this film overall. The effects and so on look great. But I found the central romantic relationship very tiresome, and it just went on and on forever, when in fact the film perhaps should have focused on other things as well. It was nice to hear the voice of Catherine O'Hara, but I think overall, and I know this film is preceded in cinemas by a short film about a man and his dog.
That was fun. That was fun.
Yes, the character from Up and his dog. So anyway, and I felt that was more interesting than the feature. So with Elemental, I don't know. I just felt a little bit unhappy about the way the story developed or didn't develop, and had its obvious outcome.
I like it. I love the fact that they do those little shorts. I mean, they do it so well. And I wish, we used to see shorts when we saw movies, of course. I don't think that's necessary to bring back, but I really like what Disney does, and it's not the first time that they've done it. I like the fact that they invest in those sorts of films. I would love to see a Disney sort of cavalcade of shorts that's put together for audience involvement and participation, because they're usually good, aren't they? They don't choose average sort of storylines, and there's always a little bit of a quirky element to it.
There are. In fact, the writing for those short films is so much stronger and more interesting than sometimes some of the features.
But I think the reason for that is it's easier to write something that sustains you for a shorter space of time. One of the problems that I often have with a film is they build it up and then they struggle to find an ending that I find suitable or adequate. And I don't know whether you have similar problems, but I mean, that's probably one of the biggest challenges, whether you're reading a book or seeing a piece of art or whatever it might be, getting an ending that satisfies an audience and fits in with the narrative structure can make or break a movie, can it not, Peter?
Look, it certainly can to some extent, and there's always audience expectations that you want to have a particular ending, a happy ending, or something else that ties things together. I just like shades of grey. I like to have perhaps aspects of a story that are a little bit more convoluted or a little bit more difficult to manoeuvre, so that audiences have to think.
Well, I'm thinking. I mean, one of the best movies I've ever seen was On Sondé, which just had the element of surprise. Remember that?
Yes, the Denis Villeneuve film.
Yeah, I mean, I love that when that almost your expectations are upturned, and I think, wow, that's really something to behold. So that's kind of what I want in my movies, but that's few and far between. I mean, most of the time, as with a number of the movies we've spoken about today, you get what you expect, right? And a lot of people find that satisfying. Do you have a problem, Greg, when a movie leaves it up to us as an audience to make a decision about? Now, remember you saw...
What affected it at times, like the ending of Inception, with the top spinning, and you just sort of, you're left to your imagination what's going to happen when the top stops spinning.
But there was one But there was one that you and I disagreed with recently, where we went to the Kino. Remember? You found the film quite slow. I'm just trying to remember what it was. It was in a courtroom sitting.
Saint-Omer,
yeah, exactly. Now, that had an ambiguous ending, and I don't think you particularly warmed to that, did you?
No, but I didn't like the film to start with, so, that wasn't going to be effective. But if you enjoyed the film, or it's got all these possibilities, yes, leaving you wonder what happened. Some books do that too. They come finished with a bit of an ending, ambiguous ending that leaves you up to work out what you think is going to happen next, and it depends on how you relate to the character, and sometimes what you take out in the film, that it might you might go in a different direction.
I'm curious, boys. I know one of our colleagues, Dave Griffiths, who we haven't heard from for a while because he's been involved in all sorts of other things. Hopefully we get him back. But he has written scripts, etc., so he knows how challenging that is. Have any of you tackled writing, like writing a longer piece of work? Obviously, what we do is we sort of write or broadcast about film and theatre and so on. But have you tried, Peter? Have you gone beyond that and written a script?
No, I haven't.
And any interest in so doing, or you're too engaged with what you do day to day?
Absolutely too engaged with so much else.
But I suppose you can admire I admire writers who can do that, because it's a totally different form of writing to journalism. Totally different. The creative process involved and the time that it takes to write something as well. Heightened and high admiration. What about you, Greg? I mean, you do a lot of reading. Could you ever write a book?
I don't think so. I'm probably not disciplined enough to do that.
Fair enough. Well, look,
It takes a long time.
Let's go to Elemental.
Actually, just before you move on, I just know it's a question when we talked about the Flash there.
Yes.
We know Ezra Miller's sort of in all sorts of problems at the moment, but given that the Flash is quite successful at the box office and everything, and there's likely to be sequels following the character, what are they likely to do? Are they going to recast the character, or do they drop the Flash from the Justice League roster?
Well, perhaps you can, without going into fine detail, for those people who are not familiar with what's going on with Ezra, outline what's going on in a respectful manner.
He's got himself in all sorts of legal problems there. That's all. I'm not going to go into too much detail there, but he has been sort of charged with some quite serious matters there. But yeah, it's just wondering what's going to happen, given the fact that film companies are reluctant to deal with actors after they've sort of disgraced themselves. What's likely to happen with the Flash now? Will they? It's probably just as easy to recast him. It's happened in the past, with the Spider-Man and Batman franchises. So that might be the easiest call.
Yeah, Peter, do you have a feel for what might happen in that regard?
Not particularly. I mean, Hollywood always finds it difficult to deal with these situations now. And look, who knows how that's going to play out. At this stage, there's been no verdict or judgment.
Yeah. Look, I mean, nobody's indispensable, dare I say. And, that I suppose that's the answer. You really don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, any cases will play out in the right jurisdictions, and we'll go from there. In terms of there's still Ezra Miller will still be seen shortly, and we're going to see Dali Land. So that hasn't come out in terms of films that he's made. But I can't see, having a quick look, that there's anything upcoming beyond The Flash in terms of his CV. So, yeah, it will play out. So let's go to Elemental and get a score out of 10 from you, Peter, for a movie that I should repeat runs for, well, it's PG rated, and its running time is 109 minutes.
Yeah, actually it's not, because when I saw it, the 10-minute short means that the feature Elemental ran for about 99 minutes. But anyway.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because I always get mine from the motion picture, the official body, and it listed as 109 minutes. So
it does.
So you're saying it's minus the short. Fair enough.
Yes. Anyway, look, it's not a bad film. It's just too repetitive for my liking. It too obvious a story. 6 out of 10.
And I'm giving it an 8. I thought it was terrific. I mean, again, it brought emotion into it, and I like that. You didn't cry, obviously, Peter.
Not at all.
I did, and I thought that was nice. If it can bring me to tears, then that's not a bad thing. Now, last night night before last, I went to see Identity at the State Theatre Arts Centre. It's the latest work from the Australian Ballet. In fact, there's a ballet season, if you like, and this is the start of a ballet season here in Melbourne for the Australian Ballet. And we've got a couple of other works that we're going to see. In fact, there's also going to be a Japanese ballet company that is being promoted through the Australian Ballet. And it were two pieces that were both just under an hour. And that's what Identity is. Now, they're new, they're very different works, each, as I say, 50-something minutes. In a nutshell, it's modern dance and then traditional ballet. So there are elements of both I admired. I just felt there's a bit too much repetition in the first piece, while I've got enormous reverence for the second. Then let me deal with both. I'll deal with the second one first. Second one's called Paragon, and it reintroduces the heavyweights of Australian ballet. And it's interesting. It's got something in common with the movies that we've just spoken about in terms of bringing back the past. You've actually got quite a number of really fated ballet dancers who used to grace our stages, who've been brought back. Now, that's really gutsy, brought back on stage performing ballet when, I don't even know what the ages are, but some of these people would be every bit of 60. Now, that's not old, but to take to the stage as a prima ballerina at age 60 is not something that you see every day. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. It's remarkable how dexterous they remain. Not all of them are 60, I might say. And I'm not saying, as I say, I reiterate, 60 is not an old age, but in terms of the expectation of ballet, when you're seeing it in the best form, which is obviously at the pinnacle with the Australian ballet, that in itself is really challenging. So, I mean, it really did delight the audience. There's power, there's passion, there's emotional resonance, and it marks the Australian Ballet's 60th anniversary with a great deal of grace and style. And it's the work of the resident choreographer called Alice Topp and a composer called Christopher Gordon. So Paragon celebrates the rich history of creativity inherent in the company over the decades. So, and you've got youthful enthusiasm, so you've got the younger and and lots of energy with the revered older guard as well. 8 vertical panels provide the backdrop upon which a series of evocative images are projected throughout the ballet. And the photographs are of the Australian ballet dancers in their prime and those behind the scenes stretching back in time. I thought the device worked beautifully. I mean, I couldn't get enough of the vignettes, which provide a really powerful backdrop to the glories of the dancers that we see on the stage.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
How would you like to come home to a bartender who will fix you any cocktail you want?
I'll have an old-fashioned.
I'll have a margarita.
Now you can with the Bartesian Home Cocktail Maker. Bartesian is a sleek machine the size of a coffee maker that makes premium cocktails at the touch of a button. Choose from over 50 different cocktails, from classics to the most exotic premium cocktails served in the best bars today. You'll always get freshly mixed, perfectly balanced cocktails with the Bartesian Cocktail Maker. And now get Bartesian's best Black Friday deal ever at bartesian.com/cocktail. Entertaining? The Bartesian is ideal for parties. No need to stock all kinds of individual mixers for complicated recipes. Every guest gets the cocktail of their choice in seconds. The Bartesian makes a wonderful gift for anyone who loves a fine premium cocktail. Now get Bartesian's best Black Friday deal ever. It's available right now, only at bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail for Bartesian's best deal ever. Only at bartesian.com/cocktail.
And the panels are frequently shifted to form new shapes and enable the performers to enter and exit. And the piece de resistance is the final act when the backdrop is reversed. So all of a sudden we see the back of these panels and they reveal what's called the bar, the long handrail, which I'm sure both of you can relate to, the ballet warm-up studio, you know, where you hold on and you got to put your feet up to the bar, etc. And the cast interacts casually against that. And it's just magnificent. A stroke of genius. And that all but brought tears to my eyes as well. Bravo. I mean, bravo, really. I adored Paragon. Bravo for what they've done with it. And so that's the second piece. And the first one, called The Hum. And even as you enter the State Theatre, which is just beautiful, Greg, have you ever witnessed the magnificent curtain the red curtain with gold embellishment and do you know what I'm talking about when you enter the State Theatre, or have you never seen that?
Not
No, you'd know. Okay, you'd know it instantly. That appears at the start of the second act, and I turned to my wife and said, "Oh my golly, that never loses its luster. It is just something special." Anyway, that's not what you see when you first enter the theatre here. You've got this sort of white rock-like formation against a stark black background, and it's shape-shifting. It's constantly moving from smaller to larger, and that's what we see as we enter the State Theatre. Now, that visual image metamorphosizes into a large global vortex once the curtain goes up, and it often has a tail, so it gave me the appearance of a balloon of various hues, and notably red and black. Why is that significant, Gregory? Thank you. Mighty fighting Essendon football machine. I can bring football into any conversation, you know. Anyway, various hues. Now, Orchestra Victoria intones this dramatic musical score with flourishes from Deborah Cheetham Freylon, AO, to the work created by Daniel Riley. And Daniel Riley, is the artistic director of Australian Dance Theatre, and the hum is a collaboration between Australian Dance Theatre and the Australian Ballet. Most noteworthy is the fluidity of motion inherent in this piece. So sometimes you've got a large number of dancers, other times you've got one or two dancers. For all of the ability, though, I mean, this, to me, it's sort of about connection with the land, but I found it hard to pick up the threads of any narrative. I mean, it's far more ethereal in its qualities, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I can't really say the work spoke to me like the second one. I actually thought it struggled to sustain its running time. I say that because I didn't see enough variation to keep me absorbed. Half hour would have well and truly done me in this one. That it's not that it's bad. It's not. Don't get me wrong. But the second one has such diversity to it, and the first one doesn't have quite as much. Still, overall, the divergent pieces of theatricality and endeavour that are the hum and the Paragon showcase the breadth of the Australian ballet. That, in and of itself, augurs well for the next 60 years and beyond. Definitely worth seeing. Identity. It's playing at State Theatre, Arts Centre, Melbourne, until the 24th of June. It was greatly appreciated by the audience on opening night, which was Friday evening. That is Identity. I want to talk on JAir about a couple of other things that, depending upon time, that I've seen during the week. Now, one of those, how do you both feel about slapstick absurdist comedy? Is it something that annoys you? I mean, you could go back to Monty Python. Are you Monty Python fans? Either of you, Greg?
You like some of their stuff, yeah.
I mean, what about you, Peter? Absurdist comedy, does it do it for you, or do you get challenged and it's not your bent?
No, I like it. I mean, think of Jerry Lewis, think of What's Up, Doc. There's been going back to Bringing Up Baby, going back to the 30s. So, yeah, I like it.
Okay, well, what a breakout, beguiling, absurdist slapstick comedy masterclass is at Malthouse Theatre. Deliberately pointed slight at male arrogance and entitlement. So you got a pretentious interviewer played by Fiedlem Cannon who conducts an at first fawning interview with a heralded esoteric playwright and director played by Adrian Truscott. Their dress sense, their wigged and mustachioed personas, at least one of them has a moustache, are as outlandish as the interplay between the pair. Now, Truscott has premiered a work that pits man against woman, and it's resulted in mayhem, with the sexes at loggerheads. Masterclass masterfully manipulates the traditional practice of interviewers and interviewees, turning the age-old practice on its head. So you've got physical and you've got verbal humour colliding as the interviewee challenges the interviewer. Complete with music and dramatic sound effects, Truscott proceeds down the path of, quote, educating Cannon as to why white male artists are no longer needed. We've had enough of them, right? There's enough in, dare I say, the canon of what has been in existence since time immemorial. Now, while Cannon isn't sold, in time he comes to understand Truscott's perspective. Still, when push comes to shove, Cannon refuses to leave the stage. Now, this is a 1 hour piece, and what happens is, if you can imagine this, you've got two people on stage with a couple of old armchairs, and you've got a coffee table and little more, right? A few little accoutrements, but not much more. So the piece finishes and the pair are still on stage together, sitting opposite one another, because Cannon refuses to leave the stage. And there's music playing, which is again talking about women and men and so forth. So the music is most appropriate. And gradually the crew behind at the Malthouse comes on to sort of clean the space, and the pair remain on stage. And one by one, you've got the audience filing out of the theatre. And I deliberately stayed for 13 minutes. I was the very last guy to leave, and they were still there. I loved it. I thought it was just so clever, and much of it's really heady, hilarious, heartwarming stuff. Masterclass. It's parody of the highest order, which pricks privilege and power. Much of the interaction between the protagonists leaves the audience in stitches. And in real life, Truscott is a choreographer, a dancer, a circus acrobat, a writer, a storyteller, and a comedian. And she's been creating gender-straddling work in New York City and abroad for more than 20 years. And this show has been put together by Truscott and by a Dublin-based, internationally renowned theatre company called Broken Talkers. And its co-artistic directors are Fiedler Cannon, who we see on stage, and Gary Keegan. And while this pair defy categorization with their work, it's unashamedly ambitious and fearless. And that's evident in spades in this deliciously provocative piece called Masterclass. Now, unfortunately, it was only on for 3 days. It finished yesterday. It was part of Rising, and Rising itself basically finishes today. Or was it finishing today or yesterday? Anyway, Rising. There's been some talk. Has Rising, because it was a combination of two festivals of the past, including White Night, whether Rising is hitting the mark. I still miss White Night. Even though I did, as I said, lose my wife one year when I attended, I liked the fact that the city was open from sort of dusk to dawn, and I still think that was a masterstroke. Now you've got elements of that White Night in the regional areas, but we no longer have it in Melbourne. I'd like to bring it back. I still find that I'm missing it, and I found it gave the city a bit of a lifeblood. The challenge that Greg, you mentioned, is the challenge that they face, not having too many people. I mean, you could have a serious incident, right, where people are basically they're smothered if people fall in amongst too many other people. So I gather that that's sort of one of the issues that they have. But nevertheless, as an event, as a cultural festival and a spectacle, I thought that White Night was something special. I applaud the Masters of Rising. I think they did a really, really good job. I saw quite a few pieces of work over the 10 days or so. I still think there's room for more. And often the festivals that you have in the smaller states, Adelaide Festival, etc., that's applauded because I suppose they don't have as much going on as Melbourne does. Melbourne's theatre scene is incredibly thriving. I put together a list of things that I do every week, and you boys know that. And it's almost like at the moment, it's virtually 4 or 5 to 1 in terms of theatrical entertainment compared to movies. I'm not sure why that is, but I've never seen that sort of mix that we are seeing today. Anyway, I also went to see Robin Archer. Now, have you either of you seen Robin Archer live? She's quite something. To me, she's one of our finest treasures, a national treasure. Greg, have you seen Robin Archer in the past? Okay. Well, she puts together a highly entertaining show called An Australian Songbook, and it could be the soundtrack of the glorious Robin Archer's life. She's accompanied by a highly talented 3-piece band who also provide backing vocals, and they bring us largely a collection of little-known songs and a few poems. So there are a few tunes that Robin Archer wrote and others that chart the path of Australia's heritage. And she's got a really warm and engaging tone, crystal clear enunciation. She pays homage to Indigenous Australians and to immigrants. Her mother clearly has a special place in her heart, and really with her love of the land. And there's a bracket on parodies and blowhards, including politicians, which goes down a treat. Robin Archer ends this show with a lengthy doff to many of Australia's place names that goes on for probably, the best part of 10 minutes. It's just amazing how she changes tempo. So there's ballads, there's lullabies, there's laments, there's love songs, there's yodeling, there's up-tempo numbers. The range of this woman is magnificent. She and Cameron Goodall on guitars and banjo, George Bertrumlis on the accordion, and Ennio Pozzebon on keyboard harmonise wonderfully. So you've got Bon Scott, you've got Kate Miller-Heidke, you've got First Nations songwriters. An Australian songbook is a rich and textured offering. Archer and her cohort clearly have heaps of fun doing what they do. The chemistry between them is palpable. So Archer straddles time and place, moves from the 19th century, songs from there, to the here and now. So from deeply reverential to poking the bear, her at times salty mouth endears her to an appreciative crowd. She really does provide background and context where these songs came from, how they came to be. I thought that really was excellent. It's really a narrative concert with a primary focus on the music. So artist that she is, provocateur in full flight, Archer is truly a thing of beauty. I really greatly applaud her endeavours. This was commissioned by Queensland Theatre. I think it's played in Sydney as well. Robert Archer, an Australian songbook, also was part of the Rising Festival that we have showcased over the past 10 or 14 days. I'm looking forward to seeing it again next year. I don't know, Greg, you probably would have missed Euphoria, which was a piece of film that was at the Melbourne Town Hall. That was also part of Rising. And I know it was quite controversial because it was sort of against materialism, and yet it was a rich showcase where they spent a lot of money getting the visuals right. So I know there's been a bit of controversy surrounding it, but I found it stimulating. Some pieces of it were more stimulating than others. That was Euphoria, which is also part of Rising. That's it, boys. We are done. We are going to do it all again very soon. This is First on Film and Entertainment. Thanks, Peter Krause. Thank you, Greg King. We'll catch you all again next time.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.